I just finished my spring term 2 days ago, but I'm only recording today because my girlfriend just left me because she had to go to work. So I get to record today without feeling awkward about it. Do you guys like my microphone cover? I don't know what happened to the actual thing that's supposed to go on this microphone, so I just grabbed a random sock that I had lying around. And I kind of like it, so I'm just going to leave this. Also, I have a green screen now. That means I can now hide my dirty room, and no one can comment on it anymore. There we go. Boom. Oh, now anyways, if we pretend for just a moment that I did actually finish my term today, that would mean starting today, like many other software engineering / computer science students who are now entering their senior year of college, I should be walling away on my couch, either because I got an internship and now I have to work, or because I don't have an internship and that means I don't have any money. But instead, I've decided to give myself a little bit of homework. And I decided to give myself a little bit of homework because I'm doing something a little dangerous. I'm making a game. And not just that, I'm solo developing a game. And not just any type of game either. A game from perhaps one of the most cursed genres out there. Platform fighters. Yeah, that's right. I'm making the Smash Killer. I'm just kidding. At least about the Smash Killer part. I am making a platform fighter. Now, if I may depart from the dry doomer humor for a moment, I'd actually like to talk about the project. For a bit more background on this project, I'm a software engineering student, and I need to develop a piece of software for my senior capstone project. The thing that's supposed to represent all 4 years of my cumulative learning and, all of my personal creative and programming capabilities. I, however, in spite of my behavior, have never really seen myself as a tech bro, that's for sure, and I'm not really all that passionate about software or software engineering. I, as a young boy, have always wanted to be a game developer. And all my life, I grew up doing art and animation and, all the things that you would probably consider more like liberal arts skills. And those are all very important skills, especially for anyone who wants to do anything creative. But the unfortunate truth is that if your creative ambition or whatever is game development, you gotta learn how to program. So I decided to study software engineering for a couple of reasons. One, job security. However, look how that's turning out. And two, because it seemed like the last piece of the puzzle for what I needed if I ever wanted to fulfill, baby Tafar's dream one day. And then the third thing is because game development degrees are not that common. And to be honest, from what I've researched, it's not really, it's not what I needed to learn or what I felt like I needed to learn. I'll just leave it at that. So then, rather than making something I would consider stupid for my senior project, like a stock predictor app or a chat GPT wrapper like all the kids are doing these days, or, of course, rather than racking my brain to actually come up with something that could actually genuinely improve people's lives, like a smart fridge, or like a social media app so that I can harvest your data and then sell it to the highest bidder, I decided to do something fun and creative like make a game, because that's still within the realm of software. And my game, as currently planned, will have, for all the people that it matters out there, rollback netcode and online multiplayer. And I'm making that game all by myself. So hopefully you understand, given the scope of what I'm trying to do here, why I want to start early. Because also, if I don't pass this class, I don't get to graduate. And then I'll have to try this all over again. I have 1 year to develop this project for the class, or at least, to get something that looks like a playable demo. And that timeline is also important because hopefully I'm looking to get funding to go to PAX West to demo my game in 2026. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Excuse me. Do you mind? Oh, yeah. I've started speaking already to different departments at my university to try to find, sources of funding, sponsorships or whatever, to get my booth and travel and things like that covered. And right now I'm pretty hopeful and optimistic from the early conversations that I've had, and things look pretty good. But that's all still, dependent on the state of the game in about a year and a few months, when PAX finally rolls around. I need to have a demo, one for the end of the project class, for two, to have, something that I can show to the departments that I'm requesting funding from, that I actually, can, one, get a valuable experience out of this, and then two, represent the university well. And then three, of course, for PAX itself. I need to have something that I can show off there, and something that I can actually be proud of and want to, put my face next to, sitting behind it at a booth. And for this guy, my boss. So what are my realistic hopes for this project? Well, actually, they're pretty high. I'm not approaching this project from nothing, okay? I think maybe as you can gather so far, I taught myself how to program in Unity back in 2022. I don't want to sound cocky, by the way. I'm just saying that, like, I feel decent about my abilities to scale this project and not set any crazy promises that I can't keep. So I taught myself how to program in Unity back in 2022 over the summer, right before I started my software engineering program. And I've tinkered in Unity for quite a few years at this point, making some random like game demos, either for school or just for like on my own time. And in those years, you know, I've improved as a programmer, I've improved as a game developer, and I've improved as an artist and animator and project planner and all those important things too. And last year, I actually also had to develop a junior project as well. And that was a game with online multiplayer and rollback netcode. So that part, all right, I know that that could raise some red flags, is the promise of online multiplayer and also multiplayer with rollback netcode. But I've got a little bit of experience under my belt. And let me tell you, fun story. That game was actually supposed to be a fighting game as well, at least an early demo / prototype itself. And that was developed under a team of 4, at least initially. So the fall quarter was supposed to be our term where we would plan the project and do some of the design work and all the paperwork and all the, you know, fun stuff like that. But after that term ended, you know, all of those efforts went to waste because over winter break, one of our teammates just decided to drop out from college, at least, you know, for the rest of the year, right? So we were now down to a team of 3 looking ambitiously to make a fighting game. And the guy that dropped out, by the way, was also the only other person who had even basically touched the genre of that game. And not only that, I also accepted a 16-week-long full-time internship at NASA, and I was not going to pass up that opportunity, okay? So I accepted that back in like November. It would run from January until May, which is all of the time basically that we had left to even develop this project. And I would be working full time during it. And then in addition to that, another one of our teammates is in the military. So he was getting moved around every now and then to different bases, and sometimes he'd have internet and sometimes he wouldn't. And he was also a father. And then Mr. Number 3 on our team, he was also a full-time worker and also a new father. So as you can imagine, the time that we had to work on this project was very limited. So I basically decided, you know, fuck that, and let's rescope our project and just completely redesign what we're approaching here. We still decided to go through with an online multiplayer rollback game, but it was much, much simpler from concept. And I think I'll have some footage rolling here. As you can see, it's just like a third-person tank game where you can jump around and rocket jump. And actually, you know, I hooked it up with another project that I had going on with a different class where we were making an arcade machine. So put together, you know, I think it's pretty cool. But it's far from like, you know, a project that I'm super proud of. It's not what I wanted to be developing and making initially. But I don't know, it's still pretty cool. So yeah, despite all of those setbacks, we had something. And I think that alone is kind of impressive. And I do think that a lot of the brain melting process of like trying to figure out all this new stuff that we're working with is like a little bit behind me. So not fully behind me, that's for sure. There's going to be a whole lot more problems that'll come up in the future that I'm certain of. And also, you know, my internship actually was working in Unity on like a spacecraft simulator. So I spent a lot of time in the last year working with Unity, and I feel a lot more comfortable even already than I did before that internship, after working in it in a couple years. Like this has been like a Unity boot camp for me, basically. I also obviously wouldn't be picking a game genre that I don't care a lot about for a project of this like personal magnitude and level of importance. So while I'm of course not going to make the promise that this is going to be the best platform fighter of all time, and I don't expect it to be, and hopefully no one expects that from me either, I do think that, you know, I'll have a game. I'll have probably a demo in a year. And I'm pretty excited about it, and I think it'll be pretty decent. And I have some like unique ideas that I want to try to put into this game as well. I don't want to spoil everything, but we'll talk about some of them. And if you're interested in this journey at all, or if you just want to follow me and prey on my downfall, I guess that's cool too. Go ahead and subscribe. I'd appreciate that very much. And now, before I lose your interest, let's actually talk about the fun stuff about the game, like the art, the universe, the inspiration, and things like that. And I'll tell you a little story that happened a couple of years ago. And this is the reason why I'm making a fighting game. It's because my car got towed. The blind fury that I felt when I walked outside my mom's condo one day to find that my car had been towed from the spot that I parked in nearly every single day for a full year at that point, and that I need to get that shit back ASAP on the day because I was going to miss class and it was finals week. That fury, shall I say, was a strong source of material and motivation to make this game, because what better way to channel all of my angry, dark thoughts than to make a fighting game, right? Basically, the premise of the campaign is going to be just kind of a silly spin on that day and those experiences for me when I was getting my car back. The main character, who for now I've decided to name Ali, as kind of like a twist on Ali, like Muhammad Ali, is a young, scrappy amateur boxer who steps outside to see that his car is missing one day. Ali realizes that his car has been impounded. Ali phones up some of his homies to help him out on his quest to march his ass through town to different towing companies, beating up shady mechanics and businessmen along the way until he can finally find his car. This is sort of like your princess is in another castle kind of situation, right? Where just on a blind fury, you're rampaging through town. This is going to make it sound like more violent and dark than it's supposed to be, but you know, you're looking for your car, it's not in this shop, go to the next one, dumbass. And so I actually lied a little bit. I'm making a side-scroller beat-em-up game that also has a fighting game in it. The beat-em-up part of this game actually came first, before the fighting game idea. And it was inspired, of course, by games like TMNT, Shredder's Revenge. And I thought it would be funny to make a game in this genre out of that experience. But it also seemed fitting that, given my background, I should try something a little bit different, and why not just put a fighting game in it? I feel like a big problem with fighting games and platform fighters is the marketability of it, and how there's just... I'm going to get to a point where it sounds like I'm going to start throwing shade, and that's not intended. And I'm sorry if I'm about to offend anyone with this next statement, but I mentioned that platform fighters are a cursed genre, and they kind of are. And I think that's because, frankly, there's nothing to do for most people in fighting games, besides like an online competitive matchmaking, ranked system or something like that. There's just not a lot of appeal. And a lot of games, like multiverses, have been released with literally like basically no content except for online matchmaking, like nothing even to do in single player. So like, what's the point for most people? Because I don't know about you guys, but like when I fell in love with Smash and platform fighters in general, I played a lot of like the adventure mode and the classic mode, and I spent a lot of time in like break the targets and like the stadium scenarios and the home run contest and things like that, right? There's a lot more to do in even Melee than there is in a lot of like modern platform fighters or fighting games in general. And those experiences are fun and they create strong memories, and like that's ultimately, you know, why I think a lot of us just play Smash when it comes to platform fighters, because a lot of them fail to capture that really fun aspect that creates memories and experiences with the game. So a lot of my attention in this development is going towards that part of the game, the campaign, but also, of course, I'm going to be developing everything in mind of this is going to be in a fighting game as well. I want the feel of the game to be like Melee / Nick Brawl 2, but also I want it to have the fun aspect of like Brawl's Subspace Emissary. But okay, so that enough of like the technical stuff. I have a couple characters designed so far, not all final, not all named, but some are from past projects I've messed around with during my time as a student. And of course there's Ollie, who I made specifically for this game. But there's also this guy, who for now I've dubbed the Raven King. He was actually the final boss from a Binding of Isaac inspired game that I worked on over the summer of my freshman year. And it's actually like the game that I demoed in my interview with NASA. So technically this game also got me my job. Raven King was actually kind of just meant to be a temporary name, but I just went with it because at the time he wasn't a super important character. But then the sound of it is kind of like, I mean, aesthetically he's inspired by boxers and like professional combat sports athletes, right? And like a lot of wrestlers use like a stage name, like The Undertaker, Nacho Libre, Jonathan Senile, you know, people like that. I don't know if anyone here also, by the way, has watched Hajime no Ippo. And this was kind of a coincidence, but I feel like some of the character elements look like Mr. Takamura here in the middle. And just based off of that sheer coincidence, also that's an anime about boxing, really good, highly recommended. Yeah, just based off that sheer coincidence, I want to put some of those personality traits into that character. So I'm kind of attached to this guy, especially because of all the effort that I put into his animations in Sprite. Unfortunate because now we'll talk about the art style of this game, which is low poly. Some of these doodles of these characters that I have and some of the low poly models are just floating ideas. But I do really want to go for like a low poly aesthetic because of one, it's easier for me to tackle as a solo developer. It'll take a lot less time to make these animations and make these character models. And also, you know, it looks cool. I like it. Also, I really like this character duo that I came up with. This is a pistol shrimp and a goby. And I came up with this duo. Well, first I knew I wanted to make a character duo based off of like a symbiotic animal relationship. So I just honestly Googled symbiotic animal relationships. Apparently pistol shrimps and gobies are one of them, and that sounded really interesting to me, so I made these two character designs inspired off of that. And so everything from art to animation to game development, game design, that's all me. And the only thing really basically that I'm not doing is music, because I am not musically inclined at all or musically talented at all. All right, so all of that aspect of the game is going to be help that I'm enlisting from like my friends. And so yeah, that'll help me lean more towards that like Jet Set Radio vibe as well, something like a little grimy, a little streety. You know, I don't know if that makes sense. You get the vibe, right? So that's the general idea. I'm working on this game for at least a year, and hopefully I'll have a demo after this first year of development. I need to have something, because if nothing else, I gotta pass this class. There's a decent amount riding on this project. Obviously, there's my own pride and my ambitions, and I think that putting my journey out there on the internet will help me like hold to my promises and put a little bit of pressure on me to like, you know, keep working on this thing. And I do want this game development to be my career if possible, right? And so whether that career turns into me developing this game or other games, or if I join a studio one day or something like that, you know, it's important to me that I have a project and something to show after like a year's worth of planning and effort and things like that. I want people to be able, you know, this goes back into the pride thing. I want people to be able to look at it and be like, oh, this guy spent his year well. He spent his time well developing this game in a year. So with that, please feel free to leave a comment and ask me anything about this project, my process, me, whatever. I haven't talked about myself like personally very much on this project, so you know, come get to know me a little bit. I don't know, but yeah, ask questions, leave a comment, I'll read it, and I want to guide my content towards like your guys' interests, right? There's a lot of different directions I could go with like showing myself, learning, you know, improving my art and my animation and my 3D modeling and things like that. I could talk a lot about like the decisions, the very like technical details of like things that I'm doing with my game and stuff like that. And I'd love to talk about that, and I'll document whatever I feel like regardless. But I want to also, you know, put special attention towards what you guys are interested in. So please let me know what you guys want to see. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, blah, 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 all that. Later.